know kids could die in their sleep. I did not know that could happen. How could that happen? I mean, why? She was 18. I knew infants could to die in their sleep. I know about SIDS, but I didn't know that that could happen to an 18-year-old. She's lived 18 strong, healthy, happy years. How in the world could she just go to sleep one night and not wake up? There's no way I could have ever imagined that as a possibility. I did not know anything about arrhythmic death or fatal arrhythmias. Everything I read came back saying, it'd be like 99% of the time, it's totally fine, and nobody thinks they're going to be in the 1%. And she's not having chest pain. She's not having shortness of breath, and she's not fainting. Those were the three things that kept coming up. I wish we could make EKGs a standard once a year. Why isn't that happening in our pediatric checkups? It takes 5 seconds. Why is that not something we just do? Of course, more than anything, I wish we could get doctors to be aware that if you have a healthy teenage kid complaining of lightheadedness and heart palpitations or anything remotely in that vicinity, it's always better to do the extra stuff, do the Holter monitor, do the event monitor. If they would have just said that to me, I would have done it. If a doctor had said to me, she's probably okay, but this is what I think you need to do because on rare occasions, these things can actually indicate a fatal condition, I would have done that. I would have done that. So Ev's symptoms, she really only had 2 symptoms. One was heart palpitations, which she described as heart palpitations. And then the other one were some lightheaded spells that would happen typically like when she stood up or when she was coming down the stairs. She never fainted. They were never what we would have thought of as intense or severe because they were so mild and few and far between. We didn't think a lot of it. My husband and I both have heart palpitations. We took her to our general practitioner, and she listened to Evelyn's heart and, told me that Evelyn's heart sounded absolutely fine and that there was really no reason for us to see a cardiologist. She kind of implied that it was like a really big expense and just seemed completely unnecessary. And, we felt completely reassured. And we really thought she was okay. We weren't concerned at all. I had no awareness about things like this at all. No ideas any better. All she did was listen to Evelyn's heart. And I remember thinking that if there was anything to be concerned about, she would probably be able to hear it. Like, obviously, if that's what she's doing, that's a qualified diagnostic. Knowing what I know now, there should have been an EKG. Our kid seemed so normal and happy and vibrant and alive before this happens. It is that sudden and unexpected. Even if there are some symptoms, they're so mild. Ev's doctor appointment was 3 months before she died. 2 days before she passed, she actually went and had a physical for college. And, they passed her on that physical. She went to sleep on Tuesday night. She stayed up late with her sister, and then they said their goodnights, and she went to bed. Thought she was completely fine. Monday morning, I got up and went to wake her up after a little while, and she was totally non-responsive. And when I went in there, she had been gone for too long. I mean, there was no point in CPR. There was no, I knew she was gone right away. I did call 911. Paramedics showed up, took one look at her and said, don't run. I actually went up there around 8:30 and knocked on her door. She didn't respond, and I knew she'd been up late the night before with her sister, and I assumed, well, she's probably sleeping in because they stayed up too late, and I'll let her have a couple more hours sleep. And then I went back up there, and that's when I realized. I'm sure she was gone the first time, and I just didn't know it. And I timed the paramedics got there. I want to say they got there like took him like 15 or 16 minutes from the time I called to get to our house. That morning, my son was home and he was asleep. So he woke up to me screaming. And, you know, he knew what was happening. I ran out of the room as he was running out of his room. And so he didn't really go in there. And when they took her body, I asked to see her one last time. I mean, if they had been able to say to me, you know, there's this thing called sudden cardiac arrest or sudden cardiac death, and so many thousands of kids die from that every year, I didn't even know that was a thing. Had no clue. And if somebody had just said something, it could have been very different. And, it's so rare. I mean, I wish I could just take that out of the human language. I'm so tired of hearing people say how rare this is. It's not as rare as people think it is, and it's not as rare as they say it is. It's a blind spot, and there's almost a deliberate avoidance of it. And I think maybe because it's something that makes people feel very powerless, and it's scary. And even with those fact sheets and even with people knowing more, we won't save every kid necessarily. However, we really could make a difference, and every kid we could save is worth saving. Every family we can prevent having to go through what we've been through is 100% worth it. And we're never going to get there if we don't start looking at it and we don't start being honest about it. And that's mind-boggling to me. #1 killer of kids on campus, and yet we're not having a yearly EKG at our local camp. Why not? In my opinion, every parent, regardless of how healthy they think their child is, should ask for their child to have an EKG. There's no reason for that not to happen. It takes 5 minutes. I think your regular doctor's office has an EKG machine. You don't have to go to a specialist for that. That was horrifying to me when I learned that the doctor could have just wheeled that machine down when we were sitting there that day and didn't even bother to let me know she had it. Advocate for your child. Don't expect your doctor to know what's best, and insist on some kind of heart screening.